and I'm serving with the St Mark's Fellowship Service, which have been organising these seminars every month. So we're a service that serves the families in our church that provides services in English. So as you know, we've been organising these seminars every month, so thank you so much for coming this morning. Before we get started, I think we'll just do a quick prayer. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. All right, so just before we get started, I'm just going to introduce our speaker. Her name is Jessica George, and we're very, very grateful for having her join us this morning. So she's been a counsellor for over 10 years, is that right? And she has a master's degree in counselling, and brings an array of knowledge and experience in individual, couples, family and group therapy. And she specialises in cognitive behavioural therapy. And has facilitated tuning into kids programs, conducted school counselling, and continues to offer generalist counselling supported Exodus services, where she's currently working as a counsellor. All right, so thank you so much, Jess, for joining us, and I'll pass over to you. All right, thanks everyone.
Hello everyone. I love how some people just go right at the back, hide their faces. Please feel free to move closer if you need to, or if you can't hear me properly at any time, please let me know. I do tend to get carried away, and so I want to be sure that everyone is consuming the information that I'm providing. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for inviting me to do this talk. It's a beautiful topic, and one that I feel very passionate about, because we are raising humans, and that's a big deal. For your knowledge, I've got 2 children of my own. Zaria is 6 and Nathaniel is 4 years of age. So, we're at the pinnacle time of really trying to, absorb what we feel they should be raised at, trying to build their character and raise good, caring human beings, which, in saying that, provides a lot of pressure, doesn't it? And it brings a lot of, excess stress when you look at the world that we're living in how to actually do that. How do we continue to raise good, caring human beings in the world that we're currently living in? And this topic is specific to that, because the only way that we can do that is if we're in a calm state ourselves, and if we are constantly working on ourselves to enhance our parenting skills, and then to therefore, thank you so much, thank you, to therefore put that onto our children. And what we show them and what we role model is exactly what they're going to be absorbing and exactly what they're going to be learning from us. And please, at any stage, feel free to ask questions. So, understanding, your children, do you want to just share your children's ages? Just a simple show of hands, who has children under the age of 5? Yeah. Who has children between the ages of 5 and 12? Okay, great. And 12 and up? Anyone? Oh, perfect. Okay, good. That's good to know. So just as a bit of a disclaimer, everything that I talk about today is going to be from my perspective, obviously, from my personal and professional perspective. And there's no right or wrong. And I want to really stress that from the get-go, because I feel like sometimes when we have these conversations, it's then we walk away with so much pressure, like, oh gosh, I'm not doing that. Now I need to start doing that. It's not about that. It's not about pointing out what you're not doing. It's just about expanding our horizons and really looking at how we can better thrive in what we are doing. We're not pointing out flaws, we're just looking at what we're currently doing and how can we just make that better. Everyone's circumstances are going to be different. Everyone's children and their personalities are going to be different. So what works for some may not work for others. So I'll try and keep it as general as possible, and what you take from that is up to you. So we're going to just start by me asking questions. So the first question is, what is it that you find are your biggest challenges in keeping a calm demeanour with your children? Does anyone have any insight of what they find challenging the most? Yes. Yes. So when you're constantly asking them to do something and they're not listening. And that happens with everyone, doesn't it? We've all had that moment where we're constantly saying, or for me, Zaria, pick up your toys. Zaria, pick up your toys. Zaria, you haven't picked up your toys yet. And it's this constant nagging. It's almost like I hate hearing the sound of my own voice. And at some stage I reflect, I'm like, whoa, I'm a very big nagger. That's me as a parent. I nag and nag and nag and nag because she's not listening, and that's frustrating. Anyone else? What do you find challenging in keeping your own calmness? Oh, everyone's professionals, eh? Yeah.
They don't understand the concept of time, and so like when you're trying to maybe get them to do an assignment or something, they're very relaxed. Yeah, so it's the concept of time.
Absolutely, and I think depending on what age group we're looking at here, it can be very tough to hone into the time thing. I was just having a conversation with my daughter yesterday about rules around screen time and, you know, what's a good amount of time, and she's 6, so she has no idea. And so in my head I'm thinking, oh, you know what, we can probably max an hour a day on TV or phone, has to be an hour. And she came up to me, she's like, what about 2 minutes? I'm like, oh, okay, if we're going with that, let's go with 2 minutes, that's perfect. So really our children don't really have a concept of time, and it's learning how to work around that in probably just how we converse and the language that we use with them. So rather than putting a time figure, it might be giving them a choice. So would you like to sit would you like to sit now and watch until mummy says it's time to finish watching? Or would you like to choose another time to watch the television, you know, maybe after we have a shower or after we eat dinner or whatever that might be? Anybody else? Yes.
Ask you the same thing like 7 times.
Oh, yes. So they're asking you the same question over and over again, even though you've already responded, even though you've given them a very good response, and they continue to ask and ask and ask. Naturally, what that is going to do to you is it's going to build up your frustration, isn't it? And it's not going to allow you to kind of keep a calm tone. And I can think, you know, just the other day, or just yesterday, so many things happened to me yesterday. Zaria was poking and prodding, Mum, I want to make pizza, and I was busy doing something, and I already answered her, and I already said to her, look, Zaria, we're just going to wait until I finished my work, and then I'm going to sit and make pizza with you. So in the meantime, what would you like to do? Would you like to play with your toys, or would you like to sit down and watch something on TV? So I had already provided her the solutions, like we had talked about it together, we had discussed, we had agreed, it was all done. She came 2 seconds later, are we making pizza now? Are we making pizza now? And it just kept going and going and going. In the end, my natural response was, I've already told you, we're not making pizza now. Go and do what I've asked you to do, let me do what I'm doing. So it was me being snappy. Okay, the next question is, how would you act if you knew that everything you did was recorded? What do you think you would do more of or less of if you knew that you were being recorded?
Less screaming.
Less screaming, yeah. So you'd be more conscious of your responses to your kids? 100%. Anyone else? Yeah, change the tone of your voice. Definitely. Okay, next question. Reflecting on the current state of your parenting, how do you think your child would describe you? Do you think it would be good or bad? Something positive or something negative that they would go to? I see laughter.
I think bossy, and I don't care about their feelings. I just make unrealistic demands.
Yes, yep. So they would see the negative, wouldn't they? They'd see what you're doing wrong, not necessarily everything you're doing right. So before you became bossy, you were asking them gently to ask, you know, to do something, to pick up their toys or finish their dinner or whatever it was. They're not going to remember that. They'll remember the bossiness, the anger, the frustration, the whatever it is. I was having a conversation with someone not long ago, and she actually said to me, I was talking to my son and he had a task at school, and the task at school was to write one word to describe me, and this was for Mother's Day. So you can just imagine, it's, a beautiful moment. And his description of her was scary. Yeah. So it really goes to show that what our children perceive is not necessarily what we are, but it's how they view us. It's through their lens. So when I asked you before, what would you do if you were recorded all the time? Of course you're going to change your mannerisms, you're going to change the way that you respond to your kids, but the reality is we are being recorded. We are being recorded through our children's lens, the way that they're looking at us, the way that they're seeing us, the way that they're viewing us. It's all being recorded in here. So fundamentally, we do need to approach it in the sense that we are being recorded, because our kids are sponges and they are absorbing absolutely everything that we're doing. And the next question, and the last one, is what is one thing that you do to try and settle your child when they are having an emotional episode? Do you know of anything, any strategies that you utilise to try and settle them down when they're having an emotional breakdown? Distraction. So what kind of distraction? Yeah? A hug? Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So it's great that you've said distraction, because I think that's exactly the method that we all go to, most of us go to when we want to kind of settle our kids down. If you're at a shopping centre and you see a child having a complete tantrum, what does the mother do or the father do? They might give the child the phone because it's easier for that moment. I'll give you the phone, here, watch something, let's calm you down. And then, they might follow up. They might not follow up as well, and that's just the coping mechanism that they've used at the time. So distraction, while helpful in the moment, what do you think it does? What do you think it does to your child when you hand them a phone, or creates a pattern? Yeah. Creates a pattern for you or for your child?
Creates a pattern for them.
Yeah. For them as well. An expectation that if they're going to cry, they're going to get the phone. Or if they're going to cry, you'll buy them a toy to quickly, make them be quiet. Yeah. But it also invalidates them, doesn't it? Because what you're saying to them is, here, have a phone. I don't want to talk to you about this problem. I'm not going to sit with you and actually tune into this emotion or this feeling. I'm going to give you a phone because I want you to be quiet. And is there ever a follow-up? Do we ever come back to that and ask the question, what is going on for you? What is actually going on? And so one of the things that I want to highlight now is that we need to look at what is going on for them. Because when they are emotionally explosive, there's something happening. They're not just doing that for no reason. A behaviour is always triggered by something, an occurrence, an event, a pattern. Alongside that, I guess our function as parents and I guess just our knee-jerk reaction is that we want to make things better. How often do we quickly jump at the opportunity to help someone? We do the exact same thing with our kids. We want to just fix the problem rather than sit with the problem. But that's the problem. Yeah? So it's learning how do we actually become these calmer parents who can actually deal with what's presenting in front of us instead of just trying to distract or feed these things to our kids. So calmer parenting. I love this picture. This picture is actually me. On a daily basis, this is me, pulling my hair out, trying to find my grounding. And it's absolutely impossible sometimes to catch myself. But despite looking like that on a daily basis, I can assure you it is possible. It is possible to become a calmer parent, and it is possible to tune in with our kids. And look, if it's something that you haven't ever done and it's something that you struggle to do, it's never too late to start. And when you do begin, you're going to notice yourself just flopping sometimes, and it's not always going to work because it's not habit and it hasn't been formed. So we have to start somewhere. And if you notice yourself trying, it's not working, and you're reverting back to old patterns of behaviour, that's okay. No one's on your shoulder going, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. It's just about recognising that for yourself and trying. So when we look at calmer parenting, we're looking at how do we become less reactive? We're not saying not to be reactive at all, because in some circumstances that's very important too. It's how do we do it less? How do we, I guess, change what we currently do and minimise it? So in your mind, you don't have to share the answer, but in your mind, I just want you to think now on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself in terms of how often you react? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you actually react to your child rather than respond? So think about that number in your head. And then alongside that, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you respond to your child in comparison? And keep that number in your head. And this is just your starting point. So this is what you're going to walk away with today and think, okay, I rated an 8 of reaction. I rate out of 3 of responsiveness. And when you look at that rating of reaction, you have to ask yourself, okay, what's one thing I can do now to just lessen that by 1? And then for your responsiveness, what's one thing I need to do to increase that? And hopefully by the end of today, you'll have some tips so you can do that. And I want to point out here too that your level of frustration is going to be measured by the timeline that you're in. So we all have kids of different ages, and there's always going to be a circumstance that's different. If I reflect on going from 1 child to 2, my level of frustration increased because I couldn't give myself to both my kids. I had my son, he had medical issues as a baby, that took a lot of my attention, which meant Zaria was just standing there, mum, come play, and her lack of understanding of how that works, in a family dynamic was hard. So my level of frustration in that moment was different to what it is now, having a 6 and a 4-year-old who both require a lot of my attention, who actually understand things a lot more and who need me a lot more. And you'll find that the same thing is going to happen in your family dynamics. If you have kids of different age groups, your frustration will differ dependent on the circumstance. So why is it important to actively practice calm parenting? Why do you think it's important? Why are you all here today? There's obviously a reason you think it's important. What is that?
It's about having a better relationship with your child and also being able to talk things through rather than to yell things through.
Yes, definitely. So just improving your relationship overall?
I believe every parents want children better than us. Because once I heard my son said, I told him some behavior manner is not good, but he said he learned from me or his daddy. I said that is not right to do, but he said my son only 5 years 6 months, but he's pretty smart, honestly. And he said I don't know what is wrong, what is bad. That's really impressed me. So of course I want he has a better manner, better behavior, and I can understand him more and help him develop himself. That's the reason I'm here.
Yeah, so that's a really great example of how our kids watch us, isn't it? That where they learn right and wrong, while when they get to school, obviously that can be influenced from other children or teachers and other people who they're associating with. But generally, from 5 and under, where do they learn this from? It's from us. It's us modelling and showing them right from wrong, or teaching them these skills that they need. So if we're going to keep it real, really, I guess why it's important to actively practice calm parenting is because it just makes things easier, does it not? It makes parenting enjoyable. It makes you look forward to waking up in the morning and dealing with your children. So it's important for both parties, the parents and the children. It's also important because we want to maintain a safe, happy home for not just yourself, not just your child, but for anyone else that you live with. So siblings, if grandparents are involved, you know, there are many factors to consider here where we need to look at, okay, let's create a happy home for our child and for ourselves so that we are calm. And it also helps us limit transference. And what I mean by that is if we're anxious, our children are anxious. If we're frustrated, our kids are going to respond to us very frustrated. Often, you know, I'll find Zaria will raise her voice or yell back at me. And I often say to her, like, what is going on for you? Why are you doing that? And her response is always, because I am frustrated. And the only reason why she knows that is because she sees that when I become frustrated, I do the exact same thing. So then who am I to say to her, just stop doing that, unless I change to begin with? So I guess an example of this as well is Zaria will get home from school, and this is the new thing now. She'll come home with a lot of attitude and pulling faces and just looking at me like me. So it takes a lot for me to get annoyed. It really does. But sometimes after I've had a really hard day, I've been at work all day, I've woken up early, I've been frazzled, I'm getting out, you know, trying to get the kids to school on time, blah, blah, blah. I have no patience. I'm just like, what is that? And like, let's get rid of it ASAP. So a lot of the time, my response to her will be, just stop being silly, Zaria. Stop it. Like, why are you pulling faces at me? There's no need to be doing that. Or go to your room. Just go to your room. I can't be bothered dealing with that. You shouldn't be pulling faces at me. Go to your room. If we think about, and this, I love doing these talks because really it just helps me become a calmer parent as well. And I was thinking, if we look at it in the same sense of when our kids are physically unwell, so they'll be at home, they'll be vomiting, they've got a fever, they're very lethargic. When they're like that, what do? What's the first thing that we do? We try and attend to their needs. We try and lay them down on the couch, get them something for their head, get them some medicine. We might even call school and say, look, my child's really unwell, they can't come in. Or we might call up work and say, I'm so sorry, my child's unwell, I need to stay at home and look after them. We do everything we possibly can to nurse them back to good health. Do we not? This is how we have to treat these emotional episodes. And I think often we forget that it's similar, because we don't physically see them being unwell. We see them doing things that are not quite right, but we need to look at it in the same context. That if we can nurse them back to good health when they're physically unwell, we can certainly do the same when they're not, when they're emotionally unwell. And you'll often find too, when you're nursing them back to good health, your home is quieter. Things are peaceful. They're resting, you're looking after them. And the interaction is so much different. You know, you don't get their attitude, you don't get all that side stuff, but you're attending to them, you're attending to their needs, which is why they don't have to give you that side lip. So we're going to look at this. I was thinking really long and hard about it with this question in mind, what is going on for my child? And we're going to look at it with the 5 C's. So the first one is calmness. We've got communication, connection, change, and consistency. And the reason why I've put calm first is because it's essential to have better communication. We can't go to the communication step without creating a calm setting for ourselves. So calmness, what does calm actually mean? So when I looked up the actual definition of calm, this is what I got. To be calm is to have peace of mind, being free from agitation, excitement, or disturbance. It also refers to being in a state of serenity, tranquility, or peace. Sounds blissful. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? You know? But parenting kind of gives us the complete opposite. So what do we actually need to do to create a calm environment is that we need to simplify our environment first and foremost, and we need to, I guess, control the noise in our life. And what I mean by that is when you look around your environment and the things that you do, whether it be your home environment, so decluttering that kind of mess, whether it's extracurricular activities, are you doing too much? Are you putting too much into your week and it's becoming very chaotic, and you find yourself rushing too much, you know, after school, quick. I know Thursday nights for me are a disaster. I pick up the kids, straight away we get home, change into our swimmers, let's go, we've got swimming. You know, and there's a lot of those moments in our parenting that you'll notice if you just sit and reflect on kind of your week ahead, what that actually looks like. Sort through the toys in your house. Is there a need to have so many of those things? And research actually shows that when there's less toys, our kids play more effectively, and they do so, and they're more focused and they're calm when they do so. You can move on to setting guidelines around screen time usage. Perhaps choose less extracurricular activities, like I've said, to free up some time during the week. Make time for homework, perhaps on the weekend rather than the weekday. I notice for myself, struggling to get Zari to do homework after school, impossible. So now we just smash it out 2 hours on a Saturday morning, we get it done. And the flow-on effect from that is amazing, because I don't have to, after school, Zaria, come on, sit down. Zaria, come on, sit down. Do your homework. Like, there's none of that. And the dynamic between us improves, because I'm no longer trying to get those things done. And as hard as it is, I think it's putting off our own desires as well. So when we look at reducing the noise in our life and creating a more peaceful environment, pick the times that are suitable for you to be on your phone, or that are suitable for you to work. Or, when your children are coming home, what is it that you're doing that is taking up a lot of the time? And for me, sometimes that's housework or cleaning, and I'm trying to get things done on my days off because that's the only opportunity I have. But then I've got children who still need me at the same time. So it's kind of trying to find that balance where you can still participate and be present with your child. And remembering that this is actually not about you, this is about them. This is about what is going on for them. And emotional regulation is difficult. If we look at ourselves as adults, how many times do we deal with our emotions effectively? And sometimes we don't at all. We just avoid it and we distract ourselves, that beautiful method of distraction, because we don't know how to deal with it, or we don't have the appropriate coping mechanisms. The other thing to create sort of a calm setting and a calm environment is give yourself a timeout. We're so quick to give our kids one. Why can't we give one to ourselves? And it's looking at things like, if we're in a heated discussion with our child, just stepping away from that and recognising, okay, this is unhelpful. It's not helping me. Let me move away. Let me give myself a bit of a timeout and let me breathe. It doesn't have to be something, overly exciting, but definitely needs to be done. That we need to learn that in order to get calmness, we really need to simplify our lives. We really need to give ourselves a time out where it's needed. And we need to remember that this is not about us, it's about them. So, I love this. I love this image because it really, I guess, depicts conversation with our children. How often do you notice yourself doing the first one versus the second one? And obviously, depending on your children's heights, it's going to be very different. But often, we're the one that's going blah, 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 rather than getting down to their level and actually having an eye contact conversation. So let's unpack communication just a little bit, because this is the next part of the 5 phases. And I'm going to throw in there that Exodus at the moment is doing a communication workshop. It's going to run over 4 weeks. We had the first week last week. The second one is coming up on Thursday, where I'll be talking a lot about communication styles and techniques and skills in regards to just communicating with your families, your children, and people that you know. And registrations are still open for that. So if anybody is interested in attending, you are more than welcome. These workshops are beautiful in just, I guess, encapsulating all this stuff, because we're very time limited in getting it all out today. But we've all had these moments, right? What do you think the biggest difference is here? Does anyone have any insight? What do you think the difference is between getting down to your child's level or raising your fingers and blah, 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 blah? Yes, acknowledging their emotion and working through it. Absolutely. That's right. And you're saying, I'm here. I'm here for you. Talk to me. You're opening up an opportunity. I'll give you I can laugh at myself now, but man, this was bad. We were at Taronga Zoo. our friends from Melbourne were here, and we're like, this is going to be a mad day. We're going to go out, we're going to take the kids, they're all going to have the best time, blah, blah, blah. We get to Taronga Zoo. We all get in there, and the first thing I see when I walk in there are these wonderful birds. Has anyone been to Taronga Zoo? They've got these massive birds just walking around freely. And the first thing I thought was, oh no. And I had already, I just said to myself, this is a disaster. I already preempted this trip. Big mistake. Huge. So we walk in, and I'm hoping my daughter doesn't see, because she had a massive fear of birds, to the point where it wasn't just, oh, there's a bird. It was screaming and crying and carrying on, pick me up, move me away, move me away. It was very extreme and just erratic kind of behaviour for me. It wasn't erratic for her. And it got to a point where I was saying things to her like, can you just stop? Like, they're just birds, Zaria. Why are you getting upset over a bird? And it got to a point where I had to sort of pull myself back. I had to give myself that time out, because I recognised, like, what difference does it make if I'm telling her, stop crying, there's a bird there? Like, she's just going to keep crying, and she's going to keep getting frustrated that there's a bird there. So I took a step back, and I thought to myself, nah, the only way this is going to be a pleasant experience for everyone involved is if I just do what she needs, which was picking her up every single time a bird was there, talking to her and preempting her, Zaria, I can see a bird down there, how about we walk this way? You know, or whatever it needed to be in that moment, I had to do. And the reason why this is funny to me now is because I can reflect on it and I can think, Jess, you're the one that's silly, because I'm scared of spiders. Like, look how big I am and look how big a spider is. And I'm telling a 5-year-old that she shouldn't be scared of birds who are basically the same size as her, right? So it was one of those things where I thought to myself, yeah, and it was a big shift for me in my parenting, because I recognised in that moment, whoa, like I'm not even helping her. I'm really just helping myself. It was about my own needs. It was about what's going to help me get through this rather than what's going to help her. And it was easier for me, I guess, in hindsight, to just sit with her and to be with her rather than have all this craziness going on behind the scenes. So let's continue to look at communication. So the definition of communication is the act of giving, receiving and sharing information, and it's commonly done through verbal or non-verbal means, but also through behaviour. And if we want to take it a step further, really, it's done through the way that we dress, the people that we hang around with. You know, when we dress in the morning, we dress a certain way. We're communicating to other people that this is the style that we like. When we hang out with friends or we have a group, a social circle, that's us communicating to people. This is the type of people we like, you know. So we communicate in everything that we do. And one of the biggest things that we do to communicate is we actively listen, or we try to. So what we need to do really is look at the appropriate times to actually speak with your child, and what that is, when it's an appropriate time, is probably when your child's not heightened in emotion and when you're not either. Your child is never going to come up to you and say, Mum, I've had a really hard day, I really need to talk. They might do that when they're old enough to kind of understand that there's emotions and it's a struggle, but it's very rare that they will approach you and say, I'm really struggling, I need to talk. But they might say, Mum, can we go for a walk in the park? Or can we play? Or can we kick the ball outside? So we need to also be mindful that while it's not a direct, I need to talk about something that's bothering me, they're still asking for connection, aren't they? And they're still asking for engagement, and it's always an opportunity. That's when I find, especially my son, he opens up more, is if we're just kicking a ball to one another and I'm asking questions about whatever. Because he's comfortable, we're doing something he's enjoying, and it's not formal. It's not this, you know, let's sit down and let's have a really good discussion. It's really impossible. Last night I was having dinner trying to have a conversation about screen time, and my kids were off kicking a ball at the same time. Like, it's just not possible. Sometimes we've got to really meet them where they're at. We have to consider the negative consequences of expressing our emotions and the impact that this has on our children. So what you might notice is for younger kids, that example exactly, where you're frustrated or you're yelling at them or whatever it might be, you might notice them yelling back at you because that's what they're role modelling. When they're a bit older, and some stuff that I've seen through, I guess, working with clients, is that when the children are a bit older, they may fear coming to you because they're scared of your reaction, or they're scared, like that boy defined his mum, she's scary. So why would you go up to a person who's scary to confide in them? Why would you go up to a person who's bossy and tell them things, you know? So we have to create this space where our children, of course, feel comfortable, but I must outline here that there are situations where you can be very firm and very direct, particularly if there is risk involved. There are some situations where we immediately need to say, hey, stop, or, you know, I don't know, protect our kids from any dangers that they might face too. So there are situations where it's appropriate to be a little bit more firm and direct, but overall we need to be creating a space where they don't fear us. We want them to know that we've got open hearts and open minds, and that they can come to us when they need it. And reflect on your approach. So body language, tone of voice, listening to understand rather than listening to respond. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone where you're like, oh man, I've had a really hard day, and their response is, me too? Like, how annoying is that? I don't really care. I care about what's happening with me today. I've had a hard day. I want you to acknowledge my hard day first, and then tell me about your hard day. But it's so easy, and we do this as adults as well, and with our kids, where they'll come up to us and say something like, oh, I really had a bad day today, Mum. And I might say, yeah, me too. Like, my day was really bad. And I start rambling on about my own day. And again, I've just really dismissed what she's come to me trying to say. So all that does, the dismissing, is it invalidates the feeling. It shows them, oh, Mum doesn't care about my bad day. She's only caring about her bad day. And that has a ripple effect, because if they feel dismissed or invalidated, then why would they come to me? They're potentially going to go off, they're going to feel unheard, and because they feel unheard, they're going to start bottling things up, or they're going to start lying to me and saying, no, my day was really good, even though it wasn't. Do you see that trend? So while we can communicate and we can try our best to have open discussions and keep an open mind and a heart to them, we have to build connection with our kids. And all of these are sort of intertwined. Like, you can't have good communication if you don't have a connection. If you think about a friendship that you might have, why do you go to them when you want to communicate? It's because you connect with them, because you know that they're going to have an open heart and they're going to listen to you. You're not going to go to someone who's very closed off and try and converse, because they're not going to give you what you need. And we all crave attention. We crave it from the minute we're born. If you think about when you had a newborn and you would leave the room, what would your newborn do? They'd cry, because they'd search around for you. They don't see you, they cry, because they need to know that you're there and that you're present. As they grow older, that connection, I guess, changes. It becomes a bit different. It's actually quite sad, but when I take my son to basketball, or even my kids to swimming, and maybe this is something you guys can do too, if you haven't already, is sit down and notice how many parents are on their phones. And what you see is a child looking over at their parent to see if they saw. And I often see this. My husband actually shared an example with me yesterday of taking my son to basketball. The boy was like midway through his bouncing, and he's looking up at his parent, looking up while he's bouncing the ball. Like, that's true skill, right? But he's looking for connection. He's looking to say, whoa, did Mum and Dad see that? Are they proud of me? Right? So it actually makes me so sad and frustrated when I see that, because I'm like, you're here for half an hour. Swimming is not a babysitting episode. You're here to watch your kid have skill and to develop and to learn. And your kid wants you to see that, right? So we crave connection. Our kids are craving it all the time through everything that they do. They might do a good drawing. Mum, come look at my drawing. Can we put it up somewhere where everyone can see? And in adolescence, you know, while this might fade a little bit, because obviously they grow older and they have their own social circles and whatever, you're going to be their foundation. They're always going to come back to you, because if something's wrong, who am I going to go to? Mum and dad. I'm going to go to mum and dad. Even if things are seriously wrong, it's mum and dad who are there as foundation to pick up the pieces. But the only way to be that foundation is to obviously build that connection. And again, it's never too late. So if you're feeling like, I really don't have a good connection with my child, I need to start developing one, yeah, 100%, start and see what happens. And connection is not just with your child, it's with yourself. And this is why it's important to have time out sometimes and to check in with yourself and to see, how am I going as a parent? You know, how am I doing? Am I more reactive, more responsive? What is it? And one thing I do, something simple that I do just to build connection, because I feel like I am always busy throughout the day and I don't get too much like one-on-one time with the kids. Zari and I more specifically have developed a gratitude journal that sits beside her bed, and we sit together before bed, we read a book, and we write what we're grateful for throughout the day, which opens up conversation. And this is what I mean by appropriate times to have conversations. Zaria won't talk to me after school. It's very much pulling teeth to try and get anything out of her, but she will tell me the world just before bedtime. So for me, I've had to then pull bedtime a bit earlier so we can sit together, have a conversation, dissect it all, and ensure that she's, you know, content and happy before bedtime. So how do we connect when times are hard? Because I bet that's the question that's going through. Like, how do we actually build connection when my kid is flipping it and, you know, just having an explosive episode? We need to really notice our frustrations when they're building. So by that I mean just simply observe yourself in that moment and examine where your frustration is coming from. Where is it in your body? What are you feeling? Do you feel like you want to, you know, clench your fists and, like, you know, really express it in that sense? And by doing that, by observing your frustration, you're automatically disengaging from it. So you're automatically creating a shift between actually feeling frustrated and then observing your frustration. And it helps you just keep in mind of your body language and the way that you're approaching. We need to ask ourselves why we're actually upset. Is it genuinely because our children did something wrong? Have they really stuffed up? Or is it something about you? You know, you've had a hard day, you're tired after work, you really can't be bothered. We need to, I guess, really reflect on what is going on for them, but what is also going on for us that's causing us to feel so frustrated. Open-ended questions are so important. Why do we think open-ended questions are important? Sorry? Yes, it does. It opens up opportunity for a conversation. Because how many times after school do you say, how was your day? Good. It was all right. I don't know. I don't remember. You know, they're not going to give you much. But I often find too that if I want to have that conversation, and if I choose to have it after school, then I might talk about my day. And I might say, wow, my day was really great. And I did this and I did this, and I start rattling off a lot of things that I did throughout the day. I don't just say good or bad. So if it is a question of how was your day, which can give you really one or two responses, you can still expand on that. And you can still share insight. You know, this morning I woke up, I went to work, I saw about 5 clients. It was a really good day actually because I really connected with this person and we spoke about blah, 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 blah. So you can sort of turn that close-ended thing into a bit more of an open conversation. Empathy. Let's not forget to treat the situation like a physical illness. Let's not forget how important it is to build, I guess, a skill of listening to our child. As much as sometimes we want them to be quiet, as much as we want them to stop asking the same question over and over and over again. What's going on for them? If they're asking the same question over and over again, why? They're obviously very eager or very, you know, excited about something. Let's tune into that. I can see you're very excited. I can see you're really wanting to make that pizza, Zaria. That must feel so good for you to know that in, you know, once mummy finishes work, we're going to be sitting down and making that pizza together. So it's tuning into that. And Dr. John Gottman talks about healthy relationships, and what he says is that in every 5 interactions, So, actually, no, let me repeat that. So most commonly 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. So if we apply this knowledge to the connection that we have with our kids, and we aim to make each interaction a positive one, then we might work closer to that target. And we need to understand that not all interactions are going to be perfect, but we can certainly get closer and closer and inch our way forward to make at least 4 of those interactions more positive than what they normally are. And this is going to be a hard one to digest, and something that you're probably going to think, whoa, like, what is she saying? But sometimes we just need to let our kids be wrong. And I feel like as parents, we try and sort of control situations or manage situations for safety or for reasons that we know are not quite right. But in some capacity, our kids are going to still test those boundaries. They're still going to do things that might not be what we want them to do. And in some cases, and I'm saying in some cases because it's very specific to the individual and the family and the dynamic, but we need to let them be wrong. At an older age, you might find that your child is becoming a little bit more defiant, is doing things that aren't appropriate, is not listening, especially in adolescence. They're not going to listen, they're going to go do what they want, whether you like it or not sometimes. And that is a hard pill to swallow as a parent. And how do you remain calm when you know, like, flat out, there's risk? I can't let you make these mistakes. That can be really tough. What I guess is important in that moment is the connection that you've built. And as hard as it is to let your child be wrong, we need to really engage with where they're at in that moment. And this is for all age groups. Even if your kid is about to spill some paint all over your rug or whatever it might be, if they've gone out and they've made a huge error in judgment and they've done something completely irresponsible, we need to still have that connection so they can come back and tell us, and we can meet them where they're at, and we can engage with them and keep them engaged so that they can eventually come back to their foundation, which is us and our home. Okay, so I love this beautiful quote which says, rarely does a response make something better. What makes something better is the connection. So if you're not connecting, there's just no way of communicating. And we're very quick to try and fix feelings or avoid them rather than just to sit with them and be still with them. And, as an example, you might jump to kind of consoling the emotion without talking about the emotion. Your child may have sat on the bench on a Sunday at soccer after he's been practicing and practicing and practicing, didn't get chosen to play in the match, comes back to you and says, "Oh, I didn't get chosen. I'm really upset." We have a tendency to jump at fixing that for them. We have a tendency to think about ways that we can talk to them and say, "Oh, it's not that bad. Everyone gets benched sometimes. You'll get chosen for the next match. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah." But again, we're not tuning into how they're feeling in that moment. We're trying to fix it and tell them, "Don't worry, it'll be okay next week." But what if it's not okay next week? And then what? We're in the same kind of cycle. So sometimes the best gift that we can actually give is just presence. And sometimes you don't need to have all the answers or the right response or anything of that sort. You just need to be there and just be still with them and let them know, wow, like, mum is here if I need her. And sometimes, like, when my kids are having a meltdown, Nathaniel might be like crying or whatever, and I can't console him. He's just really crying. And I'll just hug him. And I often say to him, "That's fine. You cry. When you're ready, I'm here." And I'll just sit and wait it out, as frustrating as sometimes that can be. But there's no point me yelling over that. There's no point me saying anything else, because it's not going to make that difference in that moment. Okay, so let's look at change. You are your child's biggest role model, as I've said. You want them to act and speak kinder. We need to do the same. You want them to limit their screen time. You need to do the same. And it's effort. It's hard. Being on my phone is a habit. I pick it up sometimes. I'm like, what was I even looking at? I can't remember. You know, and it can be really enticing to send your child to their room. It can be really enticing to kind of, you know, they've done something wrong, they're not listening, go to your room. Because sometimes it's easier for us in that moment as well. But I guess what happens with that when we're looking at discipline, we're not teaching anything. We're not providing the skills that they need to sort of recover or to learn from the wrongdoing. And they're very impressionable, our kids. So whatever we say, whatever we do, they absorb that. They're going to take that on board. So yeah, it's just about, I guess, recognising when your child is acting out a little bit more, asking yourself the question, what is actually going on for them, and facilitating a supportive discussion. The goal is not to actually stop their behaviour. It's just to facilitate the calm within the chaos and facilitate the problem solving by rewording your approach, having an opportunity. If it's escalating, it's getting out of control, come back to it later. You don't have to deal with things right then and there either. You can say, oh, you know what, I throw my hands up in the air. Let's talk about this in 5 more minutes. You're going to falter. You're going to do things. You're going to say things that you regret, probably, that you don't really mean. Just apologise and move forward. There's no need to harp on it. Your kids are going to do the same. They're going to say things that they don't mean. Apologise. Let them know that it's okay to own up when you do something wrong. All right, pick your battles. Pick your battles and focus on the bigger picture. Decide what's more important. Is it more important to be happy, or is it more important to be right? And often what you'll find is many arguments result from the fact that we want to be right. We want to prove to the other person, no, what you've done is wrong, I'm right. So with our kids, we need to really just choose the level of where we want to go with this. Do we want to actually be happy and just resolve, or do we want to prove to them that we're bigger and you know, we're right in our decisions? And in the grander scheme of things, just ask yourself, does it really matter? Does it actually really matter that my child didn't pick up her toys? Does it actually really matter that my son didn't finish his dinner? Does it really matter? And we want to look for solutions. So when we act out in anger, we often do this to appease the situation. But we want peace, and anger doesn't necessarily bring that. So we need to work to find more peaceful solutions and include your child in that decision-making process. So if you're finding that your child is always erratic, frustrated and whatnot, bring them into the discussion. When they're calm, let's look at what we can do better to minimise that for them. Understand your child's needs and make room for negotiation. So obviously let your child be a part of that process. If you're trying to set limits around seeing friends, or if you're trying to set limits around being on the phone, let them decide too. Because if you're the one that's constantly dictating to them what they should or should not be doing, then that's not a relationship, is it? It's like a one-way street. You're telling them and they just have to go on and listen. But if you're including them, what do they feel? They feel connected, they feel like they're a part of the journey, and they can make decisions that actually might be pretty decent. And we need to understand the whole situation. So not just to focus on one aspect. We need to understand the facts and to ensure that there's no miscommunication. And overall, I guess, manage your own thoughts and emotions in general. The calmer that you feel, the better your coping mechanism in the time. And the last part is consistency. A little progress each day adds up to big results. So whatever method you choose, whatever kind of structure you want to take with your children, or whatever rules or guidelines that you implement, make them consistent. And I know for a lot of people, they might try for a week and they're like, oh, it's not working. It has to be longer than a week. So it has to be a consistent message that we're sending to our kids to make them see that things are shifting. And you will find, like, your kids will notice. Your kids will say, whoa, I can see a change in you, Mum. Like, what's happened? Why are you constantly doing this now instead of that? It's because they're noticing the effort that you're going to and the shift that you're trying to make. So keep practicing, keep trying. And again, nothing is ever perfect. We can only strive to become a parent, and that's exactly why there's the word strive. You know, we're not asking for miracles. We just want to be trying. And just look at every interaction with your child as an opportunity. if we walk into it already with the idea that we're looking at them, not us, we're looking at what's going on for them, we automatically approach the situation in a calmer attitude. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So if you've got a child who's quite pessimistic and always kind of, I don't know what's okay, and always kind of looks at things as, oh, woe is me, this is so hard for me, this is so, you know, it's natural to want to get them to shift their mindset and look at the bright side, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like I'm worried that if I keep validating that negative feeling, that they're just going to stay there.
Yeah. So definitely, so if you've got someone who's quite negative-minded, who just only sees the negative to life, it can be very difficult. And it can be very difficult for you to not sort of fall into that negative mindset as well, because obviously of the interaction and the transference that has onto you. I guess when I say validation, it's not just about saying, wow, that must be really hard. You know, it has to be acknowledging that wow, that seems really tough for you. But let's look at what we can do to shift that in a way. And when I say let's look at what we can do, it's together. So let's look at choices. What choices do we have in life? We've got a choice to think this way, or we've got a choice to look at the positives that have come out of this situation. And sometimes it takes a lot of effort, and if you're not used to it, it is hard to shift that. But it is looking at, okay, life is hard at the moment for you. Thank you. That's good. Thank you so much. Life is hard for you at the moment. Things are feeling really tough. I wonder what has made it feel that way for you, and look at the feeling. Because underneath all of that, woe is me and life is tough and blah, 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 there's something happening. There's a feeling there. What is it? Is he feeling excluded? Is he feeling, like he's not understanding things properly? There's something going on in the crux of all that that's happening. And this is why his view is very pessimistic. So it's almost like asking these questions to him to kind of break down for you to understand why. Why is he pessimistic? What's happening? Why can't he see the positives to the situation? And breaking that down and then looking at, okay, let's find solutions together. Let's look at how we can, next time we're in the same interaction with this person that you're feeling, is not giving you enough. What can we do differently? So it's hard when I don't understand the actual context of certain situations, but if ever you feel like you need more skills in that area, then definitely reach out and we can talk more personally, I think, in terms of what's happening for him. But yeah, it's definitely not just about sitting and validating what he's feeling in the sense of it's okay for you to be miserable all the time. That's not what we're doing. It's acknowledging that it's okay to feel miserable because of the circumstance. But then what can we do differently next time to make sure that doesn't happen again? Or that the feeling of, feeling this way is a bit less. Yeah? There has to be some solution-focused stuff in there. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And like I said, if there's anything that comes up for you or you want to ask any more questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or even just generically to Exodus as a service. We're there to provide these services to you. So yes, thank you.
Again, to say thank you so much to Jess for coming today. It was absolutely awesome and I took so much from that. I hope you all did as well. Our service will be organising another seminar for October, so keep an eye out for our advertising about that. We'll let you know the topic and the speaker. But again, thank you so much, Jess. That was absolutely awesome. And as she said, her services are also available in person if you feel you need more assistance through Exodus. And as she mentioned, I think she's got a communication workshop happening at the moment, which sounds excellent as well. So thank you, everyone. Get everyone up. We'll just do a short prayer again to conclude. The Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God. Thanks, everyone.